To the point, formative, entertaining, and protecting the Second Amendment. Welcome back to Elster's Rifles and Reloading. And we are once again live teaching my good business partner with EP Integration, Scott P., how to reload. How you doing?
I'm doing good. What's up for tonight?
So we are going to do some brass trimming, and we are also going to chamfer, debur, run it on the brush, and we are going to finalize the brass prep with seating primers. So you ready for this?
Yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. So let me make sure that the sound is working here. Make sure we're good to go there. All right. So sound looks like the video feed is running fine. So yeah, especially if you're new to the game, jump in the chat boards and say hello. Say, hey, I'm new. Especially if you got any questions, regardless of what we're doing tonight. Any questions, let them rip, and I'll try my best to answer them between teaching Scott how to reload.
So part 1, 2, and 3 were?
So yeah, just a quick update here of what we did to get up to this point. And if you happen to miss this series, check out the video area on my channel. We are up to part 4 here. So in part 1, Scott and I, we culled the brass, right? We went through the brass. We checked to make sure there was no massive dents in the case mouth opening or in the body, right?
Yep.
And then we just made sure that the brass is ready to rock and roll for the reloading process. We got that brass into the wash to get it washed up good enough for the resizing process so we don't damage those dies. And then we got it out of the wash and we got it in the Lyman Cyclone case dryer to get it dried. And that was in part 1. In part 2, being that we're using Lake City brass, it has a crimp on the brass, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had to remove that crimp. So we cut the crimp out with the RCBS cutters here with a small primer cutter. And we annealed the brass with
the EP 2.0 annealer.
Yeah, so the EP 2.0 annealer, which if you're not familiar with the EP 2.0 annealer, check out the description box below. Matter of fact, I'll have some of our links there. They'll take you directly to EP Integrations, www.epintegrations.com. I think that's right. So check out that link. And we have all the videos on there of how to use it, why you should be annealing, the price, more information if you're interested in the EP 2.0 annealer. So definitely check that out. And we're swimming in annealers, aren't we?
I was doing cases today and I got about another 40 of them done today. So
yeah, so Scott's been going to town on the CNC machine, haven't you? I'm like,
pretty much nonstop.
Yeah, nonstop. So we definitely have the website loaded up with EP 2.0 annealers, and we got just an insane amount of parts here waiting to get built.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you got any questions, especially in the EP 2.0 annealer, jump in that chat board and let those comments rip. Otherwise, in part 3 here, we actually lubed up the brass. We resized the brass. We got that brass bumped back. What do we do? 3 or 4 thousandths of an inch from Fireform?
Yeah. So the first part 1, I didn't have any Fireform brass, but
yeah,
he talked me into going out in the like 14 below weather or something like that, and getting some rounds off. So I got 4 rounds off for part 2.
Yeah, so he went out there, shot off 4 rounds. We grabbed that brass. We measured the headspace with some bump gauges, not using a case gauge, actual bump gauges that you clamp on your calipers, and we bumped that brass back from Fireform to 3 to 4 thousandths of an inch. So if you missed any of that after this live event, if you missed this, go back and check out those other 3 parts. Like I said, we are in part 4 here of trimming, chamfer, debur, run on the brush, seating primers. That'll be the end of what I like to call brass prep hell. So then Scott's learning what brass prep hell is for sure. Everyone hates brass prep. And then in the next part here, we'll be dropping powder with the FX120i with some Barget powder and probably a different array of bullets. Maybe we might do some blow development, maybe. I think maybe pick like 3 or 4 different bullet flavors. If I have them up here, I think I do. And the corresponding powder we should be using with those bullet grain weights. We're definitely going to check out the twist rate on your firearm, which is it's the DPMS
Recon.
Yeah, DPMS Recon, and it is in the 5.56 chamber. So we're going to do a little mild load development here for Scott and his firearm. So yeah, that's where we're at. And it looks like good old Drew Bradley is already the first person in the chat board saying, time to open my ears and learn some stuff tonight. Hey all, I hope all is well and healthy. And Alaska One, Andy is also rolling into the Elsters Reload Room saying hello there. So like I said, if you've got questions, let yourself be known. But do you have any questions before we go here of what we're doing, you think?
Well, there's a lot of stuff up here, but we did go over it a little bit before we started, just so that I wasn't completely lost. But I think I'm ready to go. We can show them what's going on.
Okay, so we're going to start out with trimming, and we are using the world's finest trimmer. And this is, in my opinion, probably the most basic trimmer I would suggest using. I wouldn't use anything less than this. You can definitely trim by hand, but I tell you, you're going to get arthritis pretty darn quick. And I would highly recommend using some type of mechanical trimmer, whether it's the world's finest trimmer, maybe the world's finest trimmer 2. There's a bunch of trimmers out there nowadays. You know, back when I first started, you know, world's finest trimmer, when it first came out, was kind of the cat's ass. But there's a wide selection of trimmers out there, and I'm just going to quick show you some. As a matter of fact, some of you are absolutely new, and you're looking at buying a trimmer. I'm going to get this keyboard out of the way, make sure I don't bump that, because that'd be bad. I got some screens up here, and if I was to suggest some other trimmers other than World's Finest Trimmer, the problem is with the World's Finest Trimmer is that's all it does. It just trims. It doesn't chamfer or debur. And you got to do that on a separate process here. And by using the Lyman Case Center, it has the deburring and chamfering steps here in a completely different step above and beyond just trimming. And you know, everything is about time in the reloading world. And if you have to spend time trimming and then you have to spend time chamfering and the deburring, obviously it's 2 extra steps that you have to do. And if you want, you can actually get something like this. This is the Ground Tri-Way trimmer. And what's nice about this Ground Tri-Way trimmer is for $105, yep, $105 right here, this not only trims, but it also chamfers and deburs all in one step with a special cutter head. So it's definitely something to take a look at if you are interested in getting a trimmer. And now, if you want the best, in my opinion, and I might eventually buy this, I'm not sure yet. And the reason why I haven't bought it yet is this, the price, $739. I mean, holy smokes. But if you want the best of the best, this is probably one of the best that you can get. Probably, in my opinion, this will probably be one of my next reloading room upgrades here. If you want super consistent, super fast trimming, chamfering, deburring all in one, this is probably what I would recommend getting if money is not an object, and that is the HendersonPrecision.com Gen 3 powered case trimmer. And it's $739, but that's with the motor. You know, you can actually buy this without the motor if you want to put on your own drill, but from what I've heard from other guys, if you want the best of the best and you want this to run and function the best out of the box, they recommend getting this with the motor, and you're definitely going to pay that premium. So those are some other options if you don't want to trim, chamfer, and debur in 3 different steps. And I would highly recommend looking into that, especially if money is not an object. So other than that, let me just quick check your comments and we'll get going here with the final stages of brass prep hell. And it looks like our good friend Michael D is in the house. Good old Michael Deck. He's actually the very first tester of the EP 2.0 annealer. Last time I talked to Michael Deck, and talk about amazing guy. What's really special about Michael Deck is the guy, no joke, reloads more in one day than most people. I would say 90% of reloaders in one day in their entire lifetime. And he, no joke, reloads that much in one day. I mean, it's amazing. And we're eventually going to do a live chat here, maybe tomorrow. I think that's what Michael Deck said. And we're just going to chat with him in regards to the EP 2.0 annealer. Being the first person that got it, he says it's still going strong. Last time I talked to him, he says he's well over 60,000 anneals on it. Matter of fact, the first day he got it, he put 1,000 pieces of 50 BMG through it, he said, without hiccup. And I'm sure Michael Deck can jump into the chat room and attest to the EP 2.0 annealer. And it's amazing this. And it's just a very easy, simple annealer to use. And he says he has them all. The AMP, Anneal-E's, he's used them all and he stopped using those. He's using strictly the EP 2.0 annealer. So with that being said, like I said, check out the description box below if you're interested or want more information on that. Check out that link to our website, www.epintegrations.com. So more Zatterman is saying maybe slap that grout on a drill press. You probably could do that. That's definitely, I think, an option. But keep in mind that grout tri-way trimmer is $105 a piece. And you need to buy one for every single cartridge. If you're reloading for 4 different cartridges, you need to buy 4 separate grout tri-way trimmers. Well, the same goes with the world's finest trimmer. You can, off the top of my memory, I want to say they're like 65, 70 bucks for each one of these, which is case specific with the world's finest trimmer 1. You can actually buy the world's finest trimmer 2, which you want to grab that one right up there. It's WFT2. And this is actually the world's finest trimmer 2, which comes with a body, a main body, and you can see you can insert different collars in there. This one is actually for, I wish this would zoom in, I can't on the live feed, but this says 6.5 G or Grendel. They actually have, I have another insert here. This one's for 243. And you can put these inserts inside the main body and use this main body for multiple cartridges. And what you do is you get a parent master cartridge that is set at your bumped headspace that you're reloading for. And you can use this parent master cartridge that is set for your headspace and use it to quickly set up this world's finest trimmer 2. And that's definitely an option, especially, I've always said this, I'll say it again, when you're buying your reloading equipment, you want to buy the best that you can absolutely afford. And then if you're on that edge and you think, hey, I think I can afford that extra 30, 40 bucks, I probably suggest getting that grout tri-way trimmer. Trust me, it's going to save you a lot of time and headache down the road. So Lesko and Andy's asking, how about the Frankfurt Arsenal case trim and prep center? Now, I'll be honest with you, I've never used that. I've kind of heard mixed reviews about that. Personally, I think if I were you, I would try and at a minimum use the world's finest trimmer. And if you could afford it, I would probably look at that grout tri-way trimmer. With that being said, too, I've never used it. I'm only going off other people's input of what they like to use. And like I said, if money is not an option, check out the Henderson Precision trimmer. So Drew Padley's saying, ouch, 739 bucks, and that's no joke. But what else here? So Chris Martin's also just joining us. He's saying just in time got back from shooting a 1908 Marlin number 20. So let's get going on this. So we've already done half of the 50 here before, so this ain't taking too long. So let's start out. We're gonna first measure some brass. Now, before we trim this brass, I'm just gonna grab a random one here at the top. And remember, this is Lake City brass that wasn't fired out of Scott's firearm. This was most likely shot out of a military grade firearm that had a tremendous headspace, and we had to bump that headspace back. What was that, like 7
Yeah, 7 to 8 thousandths.
7 to 8 thousandths of an inch. Whenever you bump brass back that tremendous amount, you're not bumping it back out of a bolt action that you fire form and bump back 1/1000th of an inch and expand 1/1000th of an inch. And you're not bumping back brass that fired out of your semi-automatic and you bumped it back, 4 to 5 thousandths of an inch. We bumped this back 8 thousandths of an inch. When you bump brass back that much, 8 thousandths, some were even pushing 9 thousandths. We had to run it through the die a couple times, right?
Yeah, it was kind of tricky.
Yeah, it was kind of tricky at first, and that can be a little tricky when it comes to reloading your first set of Lake City brass when you're bumping that back that far.
So it'll be easier the second time around.
Exactly. So just like Scott mentioned, the second time around, when we refire this back out of his firearm, it only has to expand what?
2 to 3.
About 4 thousandths of an inch.
thousandths?
Yeah, we bumped it back 4 thousandths, so it's going to re-expand roughly 4 thousandths of an inch.
Yeah.
So it's going to be not only easier, but it's going to increase the longevity of the brass. It's not going to be as hard on the brass. It doesn't have to expand as much, and it's not going to get bumped back as much. Especially for those guys that are out there using case gauges, or not even using a case gauge, or not even using bump gauges, and they're just, no joke, just putting a black swipe on their neck and inserting it and see if the black marker rubs off. That might be okay with a bolt action. You're feeling that resistance to the bolt handle, but it's definitely not okay with a semi-automatic where you don't feel that resistance at all. It's getting forced home with force with a buffer spring. And if you're excessively bumping that brass back 8, 9 thousandths of an inch every time you reload, not only are you killing the longevity of the brass, but the brass expands and you're excessively trimming it off every single time you reload. And that's something where using bump gauges like that and doing a minimal bump back will save the longevity of your brass and give you more precise reloads. So what did this one come up with, Scott? So while you're doing that, I'm gonna grab the Hornady manual here. And what does that one read?
1.763.
So that is huge. So I'm going to go into the Hornady manual here, and you can see I kind of got them bookmarked here for most of the bullet flavors that I reload for. So I'm going to go to 223. So 223 Remington for those that are absolutely new. And you can see in here, they have what's called maximum case length, which is 1.760. So I'll try and get this as best as I can on a live feed. So maximum case length 1.760. Then they have a recommended case trim length of 1.750. So you see that there, Scott? So maximum 1.760, and what they recommend is usually 10 thousandths of an inch back from maximum, which is 1.750. Most would actually trim right at 1.750. And I typically will trim my brass maybe 2 or 3 thousandths of an inch above what they recommend. So I'm probably going to shoot for somewhere around 1.752 or 1.753, somewhere around there. And before we went live, I actually set this World's Finest Trimmer up for that trim length. Well, if you're absolutely new to the game, keep in mind that most trimmers nowadays, especially something like the World's Finest Trimmer, runs off the datum line or the shoulder of the brass. And what I mean by headspace or the datum line, I kind of mentioned this before, if you've been watching the series, is the headspace is the distance from the bottom of the brass to the middle of the shoulder. So the datum line is the line where the neck meets the shoulder and the body meets the shoulder. If you were to go right between those two and draw a line, that'd be considered the datum line. So right there, that is considered your headspace from that line to the base of the brass. Well, these trimmers ride off that datum line. And if your headspace bumps are off, they're all over the place, your trim lengths are also going to be all over the place. So keep that in mind. And it's super important to not only get a consistent headspace bump for precision purposes, but also to make sure that your trim lengths are not all over the place also, because these trimmers nowadays ride off that datum line or your headspace. So it's really, really important to keep that in mind. So, so let's get these trimmed up, and I'm actually going to clip you out. I'm going to get you guys up front and center here, and I'm going to help Scott move into the captain's chair there. And I'm going to clip you guys out and move you right on to the reloading bench. So if you got any questions, let yourself be known. And let's see if I can. So Scott's going to trim all 25 of these up here. And I'm going to check out some of your questions here.
Do you want to measure one in front of the camera?
Yeah, why don't you just measure a couple there, before and after. So that was the one that you just measured, right? That was 1.7.
Yep.
So what is that reading now? So that's about 1.752. So that's pretty good. So, or these are done, right? These are the ones already done. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna check out one more. Why don't you measure that one quick and just do one more here. So we'll measure one before and after.
.751.
Yeah. Nice. So 1.752, so that's looking good. Why don't you measure this before and after too?
1.759.
Yeah, so 1.759. So that's right at maximum. There'd be a good chance you would damage your rifle's chamber if you were to insert that into your firearm's chamber without trimming it.
1.751.
Perfect. Awesome. So we're about 1 to 2 thousandths of an inch over recommended trim length. So they're recommending 1.750. We're going about 1 or 2 thousandths of an inch above that. So keep that in mind. So Drew Bradley's saying the countdown is getting closer. 2 more weeks, and I'm ordering the annealer. That way I have it. Then I can get away from the salt bath messy stuff. And man, isn't that the truth? I contemplated going with salt bath annealing. And for those that aren't familiar with what salt bath annealing is it's literally you melting salt into a molten bath of salt, and you're dipping your cases into that molten bath of salt. In my opinion, that just seems insanely dangerous, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I just don't. There's something about salt bath annealing just makes me cringe every time I hear someone doing it. So, trust me, Drew Bradley, you are definitely gonna love the EP 2.0 annealer. That can anneal from 300 blackout to 50 B&G without having to add or remove any parts, and that's where this really shines. So Michael D saying, I know where you can get an annealer to help with all that kind of sizing. So more Zetterman saying, do you decap before you tumble? So I do. Decap is one of the very first steps in the reloading process. So I definitely do decap right out of the gate, and I use the FW Arms decapper. One of the best decappers that money can buy. This is actually auto centering. So it's an auto centering decapper. And they sell these, I believe, for $55 off FW Arms. I think it's fwarms.com. I don't know. But I actually have a video showing you how to use this and where I got it from. I actually got a promo code in that video. I think it takes $10 off with free shipping. I don't know. Check that out. Definitely one of the first steps you should be doing there. Zetterman is one of your first reloading steps for sure. So Drew Bradley's saying, do you have an email address? I have something I would like to recommend that you need to do. Unless you don't mind, I say it here, I kindly say. So definitely check out EP Integrations email there, Drew, which would be epintegrations@hotmail.com. And matter of fact, check out the description box below. I have a link for that email and also the website. So Scott's got these all trimmed up and they're looking good. And we are going to move on to the Debur, and then we're going to chamfer we're going to Debur the outside of the case, mouth opening. and then we're going to deburr, we're going to chamfer the inside of the case mouth opening. We're going to run it on the brush right after that. Now there's reasons why we do this, and we chamfer the outside, deburr the outside of the case mouth opening. And the reason why is we use this world's finest trimmer that all it does is trim. It doesn't chamfer or deburr in one step, it just trims. And it puts a really harsh cut on the case mouth opening. It is absolutely imperative that you deburr, chamfer before you move on in your reloading process. What this does is this chamfer deburrs the outside of the case mouth opening. This has a really harsh cut. It removes any burrs. It puts a small little bevel on it, so when this gets inserted into your firearms chamber, that it doesn't scratch and damage your rifle's chamber. It's so important that you do this step. Next step is just as important. This puts a slight chamfer on the inside of the case mouth opening. And why that's important is when you seat that copper jacketed bullet, that it doesn't scratch or damage that copper jacket of the bullet when seated. And that puts just an ever so slight chamfer on the inside of the case mouth opening. And then we run it onto the brush here to just make sure we remove all brass filings with inside of that case mouth opening when we seat that bullet. It doesn't interfere with that seating process. So I'm going to let Scott do a couple of these, and then the very last one, we're actually going to check out how amazing his chamfer job is using a Borescope, and we're going to check that out here in a little bit. But let those questions be known in the chat room. We'll try our best to answer those while Scott works his magic here. I'll try and get you guys as close as I possibly can so you can see what he's doing. All right. So what do you think about reloading so far?
I think it's a lot of work, but it's fun.
It is. It's kind of like a science project, you know. It's like, you know, it's amazing. People, they're like, hey, man, can you just reload some ammo for me? And they don't realize how much goes into it, do they?
No.
Yeah. It's really don't realize how much, besides the fact the amount of money, but how much time goes into it. So hopefully that answers your question there, Zaderman, in regards to decapping. So Dustin Montoya is in the house. Yeah, that's an awesome name, Montoya. That sounds like a gangster name, doesn't it?
Isn't there someone famous, Montoya?
Yeah, I think that's like Scarface type stuff, isn't it?
I don't know.
Saying what up, Alistair? Drew Valley says, I didn't know that. I think you're talking in regards to the EP Integrations email, so definitely check out that description box below. When you're saying, I see the email. Just want to make sure I would get that to you. So definitely send that over to us, Drew Bradley, and we'll definitely try our best to answer your questions as best we possibly can. And so Michael D is asking, are you using a VLD chamfering tool? And this is just the tools that came with the Lyman Case Prep Center. I would say it's a specific brand name tools. It's just the tools that came with the Lyman Case Prep Center, so I'm sure they're just Lyman tools. And that's what's really nice about the Lyman Case Prep Center. It actually comes with all these bits other than this RCBS cutters here for removing the crimp primer pockets. Like I said before in the previous parts of the series, it's one of the best do-all case prep centers that money can buy, in my opinion. I think you can usually get these off of Amazon for, I think, roughly 140. I think they used to be down to 120, but with these stupid COVID times, they're probably more like about 140, $155 off of Amazon. But yeah, definitely, if you can try and do the trim, chamfer, and deburr all in one step, you can obviously see you're going to save a tremendous amount of time by not doing these additional steps here. And you can see the brass is looking amazing. We ran it through the Frankfurt Arsenal rotary tumbler here. So if you're new and you're about to buy your equipment, we ran it through the Frankfurt Arsenal wet tumbler here using Southern Shine media. Not pins, we're using Southern Shine. 1 hour on the first wash, another hour in the second wash to get the lube off the brass. And then we put that in the Lyman Cyclone case dryer. Matter of fact, I have links in the description box below for both of these products if you're interested in making that purchase. So, you know, make sure you got your Dawn, your Lemmy Shine for all that too. And you can actually use this Millard citric acid. It's a heck of a lot cheaper actually than Lemmy Shine. All Lemmy Shine really is citric acid. And if you want to get a little bit more for your buck, I guess, you can check out this Millard citric acid rather than using Lemmy Shine. It's just definitely an option. I know everyone kind of beelines at the Lemmy Shine. Definitely smells better. There's a lot of truth in that statement. Yeah, good old brass prep. Like a lot of people, they usually cringe when they're thinking or even talk about doing brass prep. Who does some Montoya saying I'm a gangster as hell. Wow. Meet my little friend. Is that how it goes?
Something like that.
So Dustin Montoya is saying, do you like using expanded mandrels to set neck tension? I actually don't. I like to keep it simple, stupid. I just use standard full-length resizing dies with a button in it. You know, I probably should be using a separate mandrel. I don't know. I'm a weekend warrior in steroids. I just never got to the point of wanting to spend that extra money. If you want the best of the best, especially the best in regards to concentricity, I would highly recommend removing that button out of your stem and just using a full-length resizing die with a separate mandrel to set the neck tension, or getting an actual Redding S-type die that has the separate types of collets in it to set your neck tension, depending on how much neck tension you want. There's different ones that you can put in those Redding S-type dies. So it's definitely something I would check out if you want the best of the best. Money's not an object. But if you want to keep it just simple, stupid, you know, especially as a weekend warrior, you know, you want some good precision, but you're not driving yourself crazy with extra steps. You might want to just consider just getting a full-length resizing die and just a standard die and call it a day. I've actually known quite a guys that went down that rabbit hole of taking the decapping die and the button out of the full-length resizing die and doing mandrels and screwing around with S-type Redding dies, playing around with neck tension. Especially some of these PRS shooters I've talked to, and I've actually talked to a couple, and they actually just went back to keeping it simple, stupid, with just regular dies and not screwing with all the neck tension madness. But that's just about finding your own adventure, your own process. And it's just something that you're going to have to learn if you're new in regards to buying your equipment and resizing for your brass. So hopefully that answers your question. But definitely, if you want the best of the best in regards to concentricity, I would probably use a separate mandrel to set your neck tension. So Scott, Michael D is saying, can you send Scott to South Texas for a little while? I could use some help, and he looks like he's getting the hang of it.
I'm on my way, buddy.
So we're going to, I think as long as you bought him a first class ticket and probably let him shoot your 50 cal, you probably do that, right?
I'll be there tomorrow.
He said he'd be there tomorrow. So $50 saying, I went with the FA Frankfurt Arsenal Case Prep Center with a built-in universal trimmer. It works for me. Got it for 25% off about 3 years ago. I've prepped thousands and thousands of cases on it, and that's awesome. I've heard pretty good things about the Frankfurt Arsenal Prep Center. Definitely something to check out, and that's, once again, it's just about what you can afford and what you think is going to work best for you. Just finding your own reloading process and adventure. $86 is also saying trimmer works great too once you learn it. And it's, some of these reloading equipment items, they all have their little thing to them. It's like it's a learning process. Like regardless if it's like the Hornady lock and load press, it likes to be overcammed a little bit when resizing, or the force or coax press that doesn't like to be overcammed, or you know, these little things that you learn as you're going through your reloading steps. It's just something that you really got to just jump in head first when it comes to reloading. You just got to jump in head first. You know, so I always, when I'm teaching new guys, they're always a little hesitant. I'm like, man, just get the equipment, jump in head first. Trust me, you'll learn your own method, your madness, and you'll find your way through that rabbit hole. So Michael D is saying deal. So was that first class tickets for both of us and shooting 50 cal for both of us? Or that just if you want me to come, it's gonna have to be both.
All right. So you said you were gonna check this one out under the scope?
Yeah, so we're gonna check this last one out using a Borescope. And I'm gonna switch your brass with the camera, Scott. So you want to hold that right there. And we're actually gonna boot up this Borescope. This is a test long Borescope. And what's nice about these Borescopes is obviously not for checking out your rifle's bore, but you can actually check out the inside of your brass. So we can actually check out this chamfer job that Scott did. So you can actually see here, I'm going to insert this Borescope into this brass here. And you can kind of see here. Let's see if I can get this without the light shining on it. There we go. So you can see Scott's got a nice little chamfer on the inside of that case mouth opening. It's a nice little chamfer, a 45-degree angle. So when that bullet is seated, it doesn't rip off the copper jacket. And that looks really good, Scott. You did a good job on that chamfer. It's nice and uniform. And that's where the Lyman Prep Center really, really shines. So just want to show that to some of you guys that are absolutely new to the game. So let me, so these are all prepped, ready for primers, right?
Yep, ready to go.
Okay, so I'm going to clip you guys back out of the portable tripod here, get you back into the larger tripod. And we are going to seat some primers, and then we'll be done with the brass prep BS. So let's move that Lyman Case Prep Center out of the way. So we'll move that back there. All right, so we are going to be seating some CCI small rifle primers. And I'm sure some of you guys wish you could get these because they are next to impossible to get any type of primers right now. And this is called a primer flip tray for those that are absolutely new. It's got little ridges in here. You can actually hear them. What that does is it helps orientate the primers all up in one direction. So let me get you guys a little bit closer here. So Scott, if you want, let me get this plugged in so our battery doesn't go dead. So what I usually do is we already primed 5 pieces here, and we got another 45 to go. What do we got here? Two. Oh, we actually got 7. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull out to right there, and then take this like that, and then flip it upside down.
So there?
Yep. Put that over it. Yep. Squeeze it, flip it upside down. Yep. Let it go. And then push that back in. And then lay that down on the tabletop and then kind of swirl it.
What do you mean?
Oh,
so separate?
Yeah, it'll actually flip them all up. Yeah, perfect. Just like that. Now take that lid, put it back on top, and flip it upside down again. That's what's called a primer flip tray. So that orientates them all up in one direction. Now we got some tubes over here. And we have, being that we are going to prime with a Hornady lock and load press here. Every press is different. Every priming system is different. That's just where you're going to have to learn your own method if you're new to the game. But we have a couple different tubes here on the side. And these are what's called primer pickup tubes. And you can see it's got a plastic collet on one side, and then these little pins that you can pull on the other, for those that are absolutely new to the game. And matter of fact, one's for large and one's for small rifle primers. We're reloading for 5.56, 223. So obviously we're going to use the small rifle primer. So we're going to set that off to the side. And I'm going to hand this off to Scott here. And this is what's called a primer pickup tube. So you're actually going to you grab this literally just like a pencil and just pick each one up. And I usually grab the tray on the side. Yeah, perfect.
It's like a game.
It's like a game.
Look, Todd, I'm good at it.
Yeah, you're really good at picking up primers, man. So once he gets done picking up all those primers, we also have what's called drop tubes. So the Hornady lock and load press has also a small and large rifle primer drop tubes here. So you can see that here. So obviously we're doing the 5.56 with small pistol, small rifle primers. So we're going to use the one with the smaller diameter. So, and if you are just about to purchase that Hornady lock and load press, on these drop tubes, it is super crucial that you pay close attention to the end of these drop tubes. You can see this one here actually has a little bit of a recess right here, and the other end doesn't. It is absolutely crucial that you get this part that has the recessed end. That goes down first of this part of the Hornady press. So this part here that's recessed, I'm going to give this to Scott. I'll let him do that. So you go ahead and insert that into the press there, my friend, and you'll feel the kind of seat at the bottom. Yep. See how it's kind of snug at the bottom?
So it's sitting all the way down there.
Mm-hmm.
Like right there.
Yep. So then here, put that on the top. And then I usually take this tape and I just wrap it around that a little bit, just so that doesn't come loose. So now what Scott's going to do is you're going to take that and flip it upside down. And why don't you bring this down right about there so that everyone can see it in the picture. See that white rod down there? Grab that white rod. And if you look at the end of this pickup tube, there's one stuck in there. We actually got to push that one through. So literally take this and push that one all the way into the tube. Yep. Now just let that drop all the way down. Yep. Leave that one in. Yep. Just like that. Perfect. Now you're going to take that whole assembly and put it onto the top and turn that like so. Then hold this with your fingers right there and pull that. Perfect. Now he's just loaded up the Hornady lock and load AP press with primers. And this is where this press really kind of shines. It's kind of the only reason why I kind of keep it around other than progressively reloading pistol ammunition is I use this still for priming purposes. So here's this brass. It's all trimmed, chamfered, deburred, and we are now going to prime these with primers. So I'll let Scott here watch. And now this is a progressive press, Scott, so you can just put them one at a time and it'll just kind of work its way around and expel them for you. So now pull the handle back. Yep, now go forward. You can hear that primer kind of drop down. Yep. Now push forward with force. Now twist, back it up. Turn it about 180 degrees and then hit it again. And then take it out. And then why don't you do what's called a tabletop test, just to make sure that the primer is not seated out beyond flush. What he's doing here is he's doing a tabletop test. He's sitting this reloaded prime cartridge down on the table, and we're making sure that's not wobbling. We're making sure that the primer is seated just below flush. You don't want it right at flush, and you definitely don't want it sticking out. If that primer's sticking out past flush, you're going to what's called a slam fire. You're going to have a bad day. It's going to actually That primer can definitely go off before it's even in the chamber just by the bolt face hitting it if that primer is sticking out from the primer pocket. So what he's doing is he's just doing a quick tabletop test, making sure that that primer is seated just below flush, and then put it off into the side there. Yeah, I got to go a little bit more than that. I don't think you... Did you catch one?
I think so.
I don't think you did.
A primer?
No, you got to go up a little bit more. There you go. Hear it?
Oh, okay.
Yep. And then as he's seating that primer, you're kind of feeling that primer force as it's seating into the primer pocket, don't you?
Yeah.
So what you might want to do, especially if you're new and you're definitely dealing with crimp primer pockets, is you want to make sure that you're feeling that primer insert and start to seat into the primer pocket itself, and then give her hell on your press handle. If you feel any resistance whatsoever, the second that primer hits the primer pocket and you feel massive resistance, like it's not going in, stop. Don't press down on that handle. Definitely check out that primer pocket. Make sure you remove that crimp primer pocket well. And if you didn't, you're going to have to re-swage or re-cut out that primer pocket to make sure that that primer seats just below flush. That is so, so important. So while Scott is priming the rest of these cases, I'm going to check out some of your comments here. So let me back this up here a little bit so you guys can see both of us, both of our pretty faces. All right, so Michael D's saying both. So I think we're going to take you up on that, my friend. He's saying, man, that sounds like a good time. It's just...
Good time.
Even if you guys got, you know, what, 10-degree temperature down there with snow, I think we'll be okay. Michael D is saying those manuals are great. If you have your annealing process dialed in for shooting F-class where X-ring counts separates several positions. And it's totally true. It's really all about your purpose and what you're doing in your reloading room. Are you just shooting on the weekends? You're not totally concerned about bug hole groups? Or maybe just a hunter and you're shooting minute of deer, you're not totally sure, you know, you're not totally concerned about shooting dime-sized groups. You know, a full-length resizing die and not doing a separate mandrel process or using an S-type retting die might be just fine for you. Matter of fact, everything I do is just with the standard full-length resizing die. I just do the decapping separate with the FW Arms decapper. But if you really want to jump down that rabbit hole, like I said earlier, you really should be pulling that decapping pin out of your full-length resizing dies and doing that separate mandrel process to control your neck tension if you want the utmost concentricity on your seated bullets. It really is that important if you want the best of the best. But it's just, once again, it's all about how much you want to jump down the rabbit hole. So $1.86 is saying national chain big box stores are your best bet on getting primers right now if you need them. My local big box has a shipment for 3 weeks straight. I would check your local big box. Man, is that ever the truth? I have found that the best place to get any type of primers or any components, really, to that fact, is the local shields. Local shields has actually been more beneficial and more reliable getting any type of reloading components than any online store, hands down. You know, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You got to make sure that you're stocking up on those components, man. If you're not doing that, especially before an election term, you are going to be in hurting shape. And I always make sure that I'm sitting on a good pile of primers, sitting on a good pile of powder. It is so, so important. Otherwise, you're going to be hurting in times like this. So make sure, usually primers are the first thing to go when times are rough like they are right now. And other than that, other places I have found to have reliable sources of components would be, like you said, your big box stores. I found Shields to be the best. The other one would be like Brownells. They've actually had a good variety of bullets, once in a while powder, and once in a while primers. Midway USA is another good one. I probably stay away from Optics Planet. They'll say they have it, but you'll buy it and you'll end up sitting on the order forever. So I probably stay away from them, to be honest with you. I've heard bad things, especially from some of my friends that have ordered from them and have sat on their orders forever. They say they got them in stock, but they don't. Some of the other ones is Graphs and Sons. They are Mid-South Shooters. Those are some other really good ones. Especially when it comes to powder, be Powder Valley. Powder Valley would be definitely a place to check out if you're hurting for powder. Once in a while, they'll have bullets and primer. They're mostly known, obviously, for powder, especially if their prices are spectacular. But those are my go-tos. I know there's Notch's Reloading Supply, and they're pretty decent. I'm just not overly impressed with their prices. Once in a while, they'll use a promo code, but if you check out my Facebook page, actually, Elster's Rifles Reloading on Facebook, I usually are posting those deals. When I see them, they're on there. I mean, obviously, I get my order in first. Yeah. Usually I'm posting those deals on there with promo codes. You know, you usually get like 10, 15 bucks off or maybe free shipping. So if you're not checking out my Facebook page, especially as a reloader, when you're hurting for components, you really should be. So Jason Wagoner saying agree 100% about Optics Planet. Like I said, I've heard some pretty bad things about guys using Optics Planets to buy really anything. They'll say they have it in stock, but they really don't. So, you know, once in a while you'll hit one out of the park with Optic Planets, but it's kind of rare. And he's saying Midwest Shooter Supply. I agree, they have some really good prices, and when they say they're in stock, they are in stock. So Michael D's rolling in with a super chat for 20 bucks. I'd greatly appreciate that. He says, this may cover the cost of one primer if Scott messes up. So, I mean, you never, the guy seriously never messes up.
No, you learn best from making mistakes.
Yeah, you do. I mean, that's kind of your job, though. I mean, you manage and supervise CNC, like
a tool shop for custom profile extrusion.
Yeah. So I mean, he's making sure everything's running smooth, and not only is he a good friend of mine, but he's my neighbor too. So it works out really good. And these annealers really have been going quite well. We got them pretty honed down, don't we?
Oh yeah, it's getting a lot easier to build them and put them together, and worked out all the bugs.
Yeah,
put them together.
Yeah, we got it pretty. I mean, we're still kind of working out a couple things here and there to make the process more smooth, but I mean, between the motor and cutting the drums and cutting the cases and getting the parts, I think we got it pretty locked down, don't we?
Yeah, it's kind of been fun figuring the whole process out.
Yeah, it's kind of been a game, really. It's like it's kind of like a game you got to figure out and see how can you refine this process to make building these annealers quicker and faster, so we can get those annealers in your hands. So Drew Bradley saying, Elster's Rifle Reloading, do you ever use a powder check die, and are they worth it? They seem like they're just a gravity pin that lifts up to show. Yeah, so I take it when you're talking about a powder check die, it's most likely you're using that for pistol cartridge reloading. I know you can definitely use that, obviously, if you're reloading for, you know, shit hit the fan moments for 223 or something, if you're using a progressive press. And for those who are absolutely new, a powder check die or powder cop die, all it really does is check your cartridge to make sure there's powder in it. One of the worst things to do if you're using a progressive press and you're loading that up with different die stations is if you drop one of your cartridges, doesn't get dropped properly, or it's missing the powder completely, and it has the primer in it, and that firing pin comes home on that primer, and it's enough to push that bullet out of the casing and push that bullet into the bore, but there's not any powder behind it to push the bullet down the bore, and that is what's called the squib load. And that powder cop die or powder check die is super crucial if you're progressively reloading, especially if you're not physically inspecting every single case as it goes around the progressive nature of that press. You really either got to anally check every single one if you're not using a powder cop die, or if you aren't and you're just going to town, especially if it's on something like an Autobot, you really need some type of method to check out the interior of that case to make sure that there is some type of powder and there's not too little powder or too much powder. It's just right. Or even worse, no powder at all. And squib loads are something you definitely need to keep in the back of your mind when you're shooting your firearm. It is so important. If you ever shoot your firearm and you pull that trigger and it doesn't sound right or doesn't feel right, stop what you're doing. Yank out that bolt, look down that bore, make sure you can see sunlight. If you do not see sunlight, you have a squib load. There is literally a bullet stuck in that rifle's bore, and if you pull that trigger again, there is a good chance that that barrel is going to explode and you're going to have a very bad day. And I would highly suggest using a powder cop die when possible. If you don't have the die station for it, you definitely need to be checking out each individual case as it cycles through the progressive press. It is so important. So how'd that go? Is it pretty easy?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was easy. I checked every single one of them just to make sure I was doing it right.
Yeah. They all sat down fat and fast. Fat and fast. Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, the ones I checked on the table were good.
Yeah.
Every one of them I checked underneath the light to make sure that couldn't see it sticking up.
Nice. So why don't you load that back up? And actually, you know what? I'm going to use a different one. Let me. I got a different tray. And these are actually just 9mm trays. They're actually the trays that come in 9mm factory ammo. And I actually use these for loading trays. They work fantastic. So we'll load those back up. Now brass prep is completely done. We went through all those steps. We got the primer seated just below flush. And now we are on to this next step of dropping powder with the FX120i and finally seating those bullets. And Scott will be done with his first reloading session. So what do you think so far?
I'm ready to go shooting.
He's ready to go shooting. Just curious to see how they all work in your firearm.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually check out, see what I got up here for bullet flavors. So one of my favorite bullets here is a 60 grain VMAX. Absolutely love this, especially in a 1 1/8 twist barrel. For the money, best bang for the bullet, best bang for the buck bullet that money can buy, in my opinion. I do have some 75 grain boat tail hollow points, 68 grain boat tail hollow points. I see I have some 69 grain Sierra Match Kings up here. So I'm sure what we'll probably end up doing is loading up I don't know. I have to figure out the load development of what we're going to do here, but it'll probably be an array of this with different powder drops just to see what works best in Scott's. I think that's got an 18-inch barrel or 16-inch barrel. I'll have to check that out. But I think it's got a 1 1/8 twist. So that's something else I'm going to have to check out. All part of the reloading fun. So otherwise, I think that's it. I'm going to wrap this up. If you guys got any questions, let yourself be known in the chat room, and I'll try my best to answer them. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap this up. $1/2 saying, I wish I had a Shields here so bad. They're a great company, and definitely check out Shields. I just got a ton of 60 grain VMAX from them. They had a limit of 2, and they have free shipping over 50. So what I did is I bought 2 boxes, added an ammo box, got me over 50, got free shipping. And then I just placed another order for 2 more boxes. I think I got some gun scrubber over there that I needed, free shipping. And placed another order, and now I have all the 60 grain VMAX at my house. So if you guys are wondering why they're not on Shields' website, they're all sitting up there. So Dustin Montoya is saying, I'm into long range and I just starting and trying the mandrel thing. How about finding your powder charge? I've been doing the Satterlee method with good results. And there's, whether you want to use a ladder method or optimal charge weight, you can also use a chronograph and look for flat spots in your velocities. There's so many different ways, and depends on what rabbit hole you want to jump down in regards to the load development route. And Scott's about to learn that here really soon. And what we'll probably end up doing is just doing the standard optimal charge weight, the OCW, where we load up different bullet flavors at different powder drop rates and just see what groups best at 100 yards. That's probably the simplest way of doing it for those that are absolutely new. What we're doing, we're actually playing with barrel harmonics. Those are absolutely new to the game. We're actually playing around with barrel harmonics. When you fire that cartridge, that barrel actually waves. It has a cosine wave signature to it. And what we're trying to do is get that bullet to escape the second it's pointing straight. And you actually put that barrel under high-speed cameras. You'll actually see that barrel flex, and it's just like you're plucking a string. And the heavier the barrel, the less that happens. And the lighter the barrel, the more it happens. And you play with a powder weight charge of, say, something like 23.8, and it might not group so well at 100 yards. And next 5 shots you take might be 24.0 grains of Varga, and that starts to shrink down the groups. And at 42.2, it's spot on. That's the optimal charge weight if you're absolutely new to the game. That might be something you might want to just Google in regards to whether you want to use the optimal charge weight or ladder testing or using a chronograph to look for flat lines and velocities. I know that's kind of the newer method of doing it without spending a tremendous amount of money and components on, I've seen some of these guys, don't joke, they'll spend hundreds of dollars, hundreds of rounds. By the time they figure out what charge and bullet works best in the barrel, they've already burned up their freaking barrel life. I just shake my head sometimes, but I don't know. I don't like to spend too much time with load development. I like to kind of crunch through that as fast as I can. I try to get done with it within 50 to 100 rounds, as long as I know that the barrel is properly broke in. That's where buying some Bartling barrels or a Krieger barrel, you don't have a lot of barrel break-in time. You usually are a shooter right out of the gate. You don't have to worry about doing load development later until the barrel breaks in. But some of those more inexpensive rifles, right off the shelf, sub 1,000, especially if the rifling's been cut with a button and not rifle cut, you might want to wait until you do load development. You might want to wait like 50 to 100 rounds until you actually start doing load development. And that, I can see that time and time again. A lot of guys, they try to do load development with a $500 rifle right away, and they haven't even given the rifling a chance to break in yet. So, definitely something to keep in the back of your mind. So Jason Wagner saying, just completed my first OCW for 308 using Varga CCI 200 Alpha Brass with Sinclair 175 grains. Huge thanks to your videos, Todd. I need to shoot at 1,000 to complete some testing though. So that sounds really good. Keep me updated on that, especially on my Facebook page. Michael D is saying 68 or 69 gets my vote, and we'll definitely test that out, Michael D. Drew Valley saying thank you, be safe everyone, and don't forget to check your email box. So I'll definitely check that out. Otherwise, I think that's it. We're going to wrap this up. Next time you guys see us is going to be dropping powder with the FX 120i. Probably one of the most badass powder drop measure scales that money can buy, roughly $1,300 sitting right there. And we're going to see some bullets. So what do you think so far?
This is a huge learning experience, man.
Yeah.
I've never done this before. This is it's fun, even though I joke about it.
Yeah.
Wanting to go shoot. I love learning new stuff, so
Yeah.
I'm excited for the next step.
Yeah. So this is, I think, fun for both of us. And Jason Wagner says, take care, everyone. And we will see you guys in the next video.